Part 4 are the conclusion of my deconstruction of Bart Ehrman, of Bart D. Ehrman. So I'm adding just a little bit to the video here. I saw a complaint earlier about two things. One, what is deconstruction? As people seem to think of it as the destruction of. No, deconstruction is an analytical approach to any material. You can deconstruct the Bible, you can deconstruct economics. It's just taking it down to its most basic parts, then taking it below that to what the elements were, and then looking at how you understand them and then redefining it. That is redefining your understanding and then rebuilding it based on your discoveries when you're down at that base level. This is me examining Bart Ehrman back to his basic fundamentals, which for him, from my point of view, are his Protestant beliefs and then his evangelical upbringing. And that's influencing him now that he's an atheist or an agnostic, as his agnosticism seems to come not on the evil and suffering part, but on the biblical analysis. Seems to come from his desire to make the Bible 100% literal, which doesn't work. And even in his own explanations, he doesn't do that. So he's holding it to a standard that he himself can't achieve. So it seems very an incorrect assumption. The second thing here is I would like to add a little addendum to what I'm talking about when it comes to my argument. My argument is not that somehow if he was Catholic, he would not have become an agnostic. My argument is that if he was a properly catechized Catholic and he had grown into a mature faith, these particular issues, these Protestant issues, would not exist for him. Because as a Catholic who has been properly catechized, who has read the church fathers and a lot of the material that Bart Ehrman himself has translated, it has helped strengthen my faith, not hurt it. But I was not trying to hold the Bible to an absolute literalism. I was open to it being polemic, open to the author, the human author, making historical or categorical mistakes, while God, the inspired author, relaying a moral truth. I'm open to that. As a Protestant, from what Bart has told us in his debates and in his lectures, he was not open to that. So that conflict wasn't able to be reconciled in his mind. While for me and St. Augustine, it was. St. Augustine had the same exact problem when he tried to read the Bible the first time. It was like, how can any of this be true? But then when he read it again, after he heard the voice of a child, after his friend died, and he saw that there were metaphors and analogies in there, it made way more sense to him. So that was my argument, is that these particular issues would not, the inerrancy of the Bible would not be a problem for Bart had he been a Catholic. Not that if he was a Catholic, he wouldn't have become agnostic, because there are other problems in the world other than just whether the Bible is infallible, whether it's sola scriptura, whether it's subject to sola scriptura, whether it's authoritative, whether it's infallible. There are other issues in the world when it comes to religion. Conclusions. The childish and simplistic explanations of God and biblical literacy of Protestantism and American evangelicalism leave one open to fall away from grace and turn away from faith. If a global flood must have occurred, if unicorns and dragons must have existed but dinosaurs could not, if evolution must necessarily contradict biblical narrative and accounting, if the Canaanites must have been obliterated while still appearing in later books, if all versions of Jesus' life must be synthesized in such a perfect state of harmony that they must agree on all things, then there is nowhere for someone like Bart Ehrman, Neil deGrasse Tyson, or any other person to go with their doubt, other than atheism and agnosticism. Luckily for Catholics, Orthodox, Anglicans, and practicing Jews, those two stances are not the only option for those who choose or are chosen to wrestle with God and His Word. In the end, while I enjoyed Bart Ehrman's lectures and did learn some new knowledge from them, I was not blown away, as much of his material could be found in majority Catholic, Orthodox, and Jewish study material. Nor do I think it would shock those of the new Calvinist persuasion. Yet for many denominations, Dr. Ehrman's lectures would be offensive and could break the faith of the unprepared. I do not think a closed-off fundamentalist, literalist, could hold their understanding of faith against Bart's well-thought-out critiques and doubts. Those who hold to biblical infallibility, inerrancy, and ultra-literalism would crumble against Bart's facts and logical argumentation. You add to that the very real issues of pain, suffering, evil, and death, and anyone who has a Pollyannish, simplistic understanding of God in the biblical text, and you leave them unprepared for the facts and history they must face when they dive deeper into biblical and manuscript history. I think Bart was such a person, and I do think his journey through deconstruction harmed him simply because his foundation was faulty. It was half mixed sand and clay, without water or ash, without tradition and liturgy. Scripture alone fails in the minds of the doubtful and unbelieving, creating atheists and agnostics where we could have mystics and converts. All that being said, I do recommend listening to Bart's lectures, watching his debates, and reading his books. He is truly an expert, but he lacks the imagination, faith, or wisdom his vast and substantial knowledge is worthy of. This is Alpha Centurion, and that was the deconstruction of Bart Ehrman.